time for today's perspective on the programme. And we're talking on the programme today about a disease that hits 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women. It is a killer, something that brings misery and sadness to millions of families across the world, a murderer, if you like, which strikes down the innocent. And yet there is a way to stand up and to not be afraid of cancer. Well, that's the theory behind a new book. Here it is, Verité, the Truthful Enquiry, if you like. It's published by internationally renowned oncologist David Khayat, and he's former head of the oncology department at the Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital here in Paris. He's also professor at the University Pierre and Marie Curie. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us on the programme today. So no longer be afraid of cancer. I mean, isn't that a little easier said than done, particularly perhaps if you're from a family that has suffered from people losing their lives due to cancer in the past?
Every family has been suffered from cancer in the world. And no, the idea is that I wrote this book like a real inquiry, you know. So I said the cancer is a serial killer. It kills so many people in the world. So I'm going to be a profiler, to try to enter into his mind and try to understand why does he kill people, how does he kill people, where does he kill people, what's the crime, how does he do the crime. And so the idea is beyond that is that if you know the killer, if you look at a movie and and you see a thriller, and at some point you know who is the killer, you start to be less afraid about him because you know who is he, and you know that if you know him, you are going to catch him. So the idea of this book is by describing how the cancer is doing its job, its terrible job, killing people, we are going to be less afraid about it.
Doesn't that imply that there's only one way that a cancer works and develops?
Well, cancer. Yeah, there is one way. I mean, the cancer is a cell that become malignant at some point, and because it becomes malignant because of mutation on its DNA, on its chromosomes, then this mutation will affect the genes that control the division of cells. And that cell, the first cell in the body of someone who has become malignant, starts to divide. One cell will give 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. And these divisions are going to create a tumor, a lump. And you have to know that a lump of 1 centimeter in diameter, which is a very, very small tumor, contains already 1 billion cells, malignant cells. So that system, that process is common to all types of cancer. Now, the type of mutation that will drive that process and start pushing the cell to divide might be different from one cancer to another according to what is the cause of cancer. I mean, tobacco is going to affect some particular genes, whether the bad food that you may eat might affect other genes. But at the end of the day, the process is always the same. A cell starts to divide, uncontrolled division, and by time, I mean, you're going to get so many million and billion cells that these cells are going to become proeminent compared to the normal cells and finally will kill the body.
So you say you need to look at why this is happening. So what should people be doing? What should they be careful about?
What I did in that book is that I gave the demonstration of the relationship between stress, between sadness and cancer. I mean, it's an intuition of everybody thinks that there is a relationship between the two things, but this has never been put all together, all the studies, all the experimental data coming from experiments, I mean, to put all together and demonstrate the link, the relationship between that and that. And actually it's not stress, it's when you cannot cope with your stress. And it's not sadness, it's when you cannot share that sadness. So when your body thinks that it's too much, cannot stand it anymore.
Yeah, you give several examples, don't you, of people who they have life-changing experiences, for example,
you know,
and that really
I've been treating
affects...
cancer for 42 years, so my brain is full of stories, of biographies. So I give a lot of examples in that book. So that story about the fact that you cannot cope anymore, then there is a sufferance of your cells, of your body, and that sufferance will decrease the potency, will decrease the strength of your immune system, the white blood cells, the antibodies that you produce to defend yourself against viruses and bacteria and everything, but also normally against cancer cells, because cancer is the first predator of human beings. So, but the cancer cells, the cancer cells are so powerful that if you are tired, if your body is weak because of the stress that you cannot cope with anymore because you are too sad, you cannot share that sadness, then the cancer cell become stronger and will finally start to develop and give a cancer.
So it sounds like what you're saying then is it's all in the mind. I mean, surely it's not quite as simple as that.
No, it's not quite simple as that. I mean, compared to tobacco, to viruses that can give cervical cancer and so on. I mean, stress is a very weak risk factor, but it is a risk factor, and it's the first time that in a book for the public, we can somebody is demonstrating that risk factor, the implication of that risk factor. So it's not that stress is going to give you cancer. It's not that stress that you cannot cope with because you cannot do anything to get your body released of that stress. That will just increase your risk, but will not give cancer.
It's about making it worse, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. The risk is increased.
What about, I mean, presumably then you can't say that anyone, somebody who's incredibly positive, who's very fit, who eats the right things, is not going to get cancer, or is it a less risk of getting cancer?
It's just less risk cancer. You know, I see every day people that get lung cancer that never smoke, or people that do sport every day, that are thin and, you know, great shape of their body and everything, good in their mind, and they get cancer. Beside every risk factor, even the worst risk factor, even if you take tobacco, which is again the strongest risk factor for cancer, only one smoker out of 6 is going to get cancer. 5 will not. So there are risk factors there, but there are then a lottery. You get it or not, depends of if you may die before having cancer from something else. You may have a cancer but control it for years and years. That we know that from prostate cancer. You know, about 1/3 of the prostate cancers that are detected these days by doing the blood test PSA are not going to develop during the length of time of this person. So do not need to be treated at all. Just check, but not because your body can control some cancers. But when your body is weak, then over.
And you talk in the book about 7 golden keys. What are the most important ones of those, do you think?
Well, you know, these are keys about stress. You can, for instance, meditate. You can think positively. There is a very simple way, for instance, that I described, which is coming from yoga, which is the square breathing. You know, if you take, for instance, 6 seconds to inspire, and then 6 seconds you stop, then 6 seconds you expire, then 6 seconds you stop. That square breathing obliges you to think only of the way you breathe, and you stop thinking of anything. Within minutes, you will stop thinking of anything else. And that is a kind of meditation that helps you.
David Khayat, great to have you with us on the programme today.
It's been
That's
a pleasure.
the book, L'Enquête de Verité. You don't need to be afraid of cancer, basically. Thanks very much for being with us
Thank you.
on the programme today.